Welcome to today's coffee break. Today I want to talk about what is seemingly one of the hardest to understand concepts in multi-leaf collimator design, which is commonly referred to as the focus. So simply speaking, there's single focus, which is a straight leaf, and double focus, which is a rounded leaf. However, we thought about how we can display this in a more academic manner. And we thought about 3D rendering of CAD designs or of building up a full mock-up of a Linac. But in the end, we decided to go with a watermelon. So let me show you how that works. So theoretically, the beam goes in all directions. So here's our perfect 4-pi sphere. Now, obviously, the main part of the radiation is pointing downwards, so let's cut the sphere into half. So here we go with our lower sphere. Here bring the beam pointing downwards. Now the primary collimator already pre-shapes the beam in the main field. Exaggerating a bit would be like this. Well, I'm trying not to cut my finger. Here you go. So here's our primary beam. The secondary collimator and a couple of other stuff cuts this a bit more. So let's take this away. Tasty. So now let's go a bit closer. This is basically what's left of the beam for the multi-leaf collimator to shape. Now let's cut this into 2 halves for the 2 banks of the MLC. And of course now we have several leaves. Now here for this example, let me cut it into 3 leaves. Now in an ideal world, these leaves are perfectly along the trajectory of the beam, just as these pieces of a watermelon. However, if you let them interdigitate, so run them within each other, you will quickly see that they either collide or will have too much space between them, whether you line them here or here. So necessarily, you end up with a compromise. Double focus typically is then not a cutout of a full sphere, but more of a cylinder. Or even worse, the dirtiest of all compromise, you make it a single focus, meaning you basically make it straight here and here. This is when it is called a single focus, because there's only basically one direction where it's aligned with the beam. In this case, this here. And now, while telling you that this is the dirtiest compromise, it is in fact what is used in almost all MLCs nowadays. So this is our double focus leaf, and this is our single focus. And while the double focus will run like this, the single focus moves like this. The only measure to counteract all the disadvantages is to round off the front side of the leaf a bit. Now this is becoming very artistic. It goes along the beam in all extensions. So now I've told you how single focus is not only a bad term to use, but it's also a very bad compromise from a physics point of view. And still, it is a very good solution. And here's why. Well, there's plenty of other effects that come into play for the penumbra, such as scatter or focal spot size, a few other things. 2, most modern TPS can totally compensate for most of the effects that are in the compromise here. Thirdly, and maybe most importantly, there's a lot of cost involved. So there's a big investment when you choose for double focus, and it's basically a business decision whether it's worth the extra in penumbra performance. So in other words, when I come around with a new project, for double focus MLC. The designers will love me for it because it's a new good challenge. The manufacturer will basically kill me because they'll have to make it work. So with that being said, next time you look up your Linac into the MLC, think of the watermelon. See you, goodbye.